Welcome back, you unpredictable force of nature. You are still here after enduring something that should have erased entire bloodlines. Not just you alone, but the past, present, and future that were tied to you. 3 generations worth of emotional weight was placed on your shoulders. And somehow you're sitting there right now breathing, scrolling, existing as if the impossible didn't just happen. That alone defies logic. You move through the world like a contradiction, alive when you were never meant to be. You survived circumstances that weren't designed for survival, carrying devastation quietly, without spectacle, without collapse. And the most unsettling part is how normal you've made it look, as if absorbing enough trauma to shatter entire family histories was just another task on your daily list, planned as you walked through experiences that should have ended you completely. Not metaphorically, literally. The kind of pain that erases futures before they ever get a chance to exist. Betrayals that hollowed you out from the inside. Losses that fractured your sense of reality. Abandonment so deep, they left you awake in the early hours of the morning, staring into nothing, questioning whether your existence ever mattered at all. Those moments weren't supposed to be survivable. Those were supposed to be conclusions, not chapters. And yet, instead of disappearing, instead of breaking apart, you absorbed every ounce of it. You carried the poison, the lies, the silence, the isolation, and you kept moving forward anyway. That isn't resilience as people casually define it. That's something else entirely. Blend. Most people never reach the level of pressure you've lived under. The emotional load you've processed exceeds what the human nervous system is designed to handle. Entire ancestral lines have collapsed under far less. The chaos you navigated, the psychological warfare you endured, the relentless stress layered on top of unresolved grief. It surpassed the thresholds. There is no standard framework for what you've survived, no diagnostic box, no neat explanation. You exist beyond the charts, beyond the studies, beyond the motivational slogans. If survival had limits, you passed them long ago. You should exist only as a theoretical anomaly, not as a living, breathing presence. And yet here you are, quiet, composed, almost unnervingly calm. You're not raging. You're not imploding. You're not demanding recognition. You move with a stillness that unsettles people, because on some level they sense it. They feel that you've been somewhere they could never survive. You've touched depths that only visit others in their nightmares, and you returned from them intact. That awareness, they don't know how to categorize someone who has stared into total collapse and come back without needing to announce it. Lens. While others were unraveling over minor disruptions, broadcasting carefully filtered versions of their struggles, you were dissolving and rebuilding yourself in silence. You were undergoing internal transformations that should have taken decades, entire support systems, and constant intervention. But you had none of that. There was no safety net, no audience, no rescue. There was only you, alone in the dark, processing experiences that would have shut others down permanently. And somehow, against every expectation, you metabolized it. You didn't just endure suffering, you converted it into something else entirely. Not wisdom in the traditional sense. Not peace, not enlightenment. What emerged was sharper, heavier, more powerful. Your pain altered your internal structure. It changed the way you exist in the world. It tuned you to a frequency that only certain people can sense. Those who recognize it don't respond casually. They either retreat instinctively or they submit to its gravity. There is no middle ground anymore, because survival at your level leaves a mark that can't be hidden. And here's the truth. no one prepares you for. That pain didn't vanish. It didn't dissolve with time, and it didn't magically soften the way people promise it will. It embedded itself into you. It became part of your foundation, part of your design. It shaped how you see, how you move, how you endure. You are not broken because of it. You are built differently now. And most people will never understand what that truly means. What you went through didn't simply scar you. It reorganized you from the inside out. Your nervous system adapted to pressures it was never designed to endure. Your perception was altered, recalibrated by prolonged exposure to chaos, threat, and loss. Entirely new internal pathways formed just so you could remain functional. You don't process reality the way you once did. You don't respond the way you used to. The version of you that existed before all of this belonged to a different era of your life form altogether. You resemble who you were, but you no longer operate on the same wavelength. Something fundamental shifted, and there's no undoing it. You notice it when you enter rooms. Conversations change tone. People you've never met suddenly feel compelled to explain themselves, to justify things you never asked about. Strangers sense something off and can't name it. Old acquaintances become restless, distracted, eager to leave without understanding why. It's because you're carrying something now, an invisible weight, a silent density. You move with the presence of someone who has already witnessed endings that never made it into history. You walk with the gravity of timelines that collapsed before they could fully unfold. There's a calm about you that doesn't come from confidence or arrogance, but from having already faced the worst and returned. Anyway, and the strangest part is how little you advertise it. You're not announcing your survival. You're not performing your resilience. You're not selling inspiration or packaging your pain into digestible lessons. You're just living, making coffee, going to work, having ordinary conversations, existing as if you didn't pass through a highly personalized nightmare that was engineered to break you completely, as if you didn't endure something that would have ended legacies and erased futures. People look at you and assume you're fine. They assume you're ordinary. They have no idea you're operating on reserves that shouldn't exist, drawing from internal fuel sources that haven't been named, let alone studied. And you let them believe that because explaining what you've become would require a language humanity hasn't developed yet. Come leans. If you ever wonder what happened to others who faced similar trials, the answer is uncomfortable but simple. Most of them didn't make it here. Some numbed themselves until nothing was left. Some vanished into dependency and never returned. Some are still stuck at the beginning, replaying the first impact, trying to understand year one while you're quietly existing years beyond that. Some surrendered completely. That's not condemnation. It's reality. What you endured wasn't meant to be survivable. The odds of coming through intact were nearly non-existent, and yet you did. Not because you were destined, not because you were chosen, but because something in you refused to give the experience the final word. There was a moment, maybe many moments, when something inside you stared directly into the void and decided it wouldn't win today. It's over collapse. If you were going to walk through hell, you would not emerge as something easily understood or controlled. Those who watched from the sidelines expected a breakdown. They expected spectacle. They expected public unraveling, visible desperation, proof that you were as fragile as they felt. They wanted confirmation that no one truly survives that level of pain, but it never happened. You kept moving. You kept processing. You kept converting poison into whatever form of energy you needed just to stay alive. And every day you didn't fall apart forced them to confront a truth they didn't want to see. Some people adapt, where others disintegrate. Bland. Here's the distinction most people miss. You didn't heal. Healing implies returning to a previous state. That wasn't possible. The person you were before doesn't exist anymore. That version of you ended more than once. You mourned them. You buried them. What happened instead was evolution under conditions that should have been fatal. You adapted to environments incompatible with normal human functioning. You didn't become better or worse. You became different. Permanently. Your nervous system has endured extinction-level events and still operates. Your emotional structure was rebuilt in isolation, without guidance, without safety. Your psychological framework was forged in temperatures that melt most people. And somehow you remain stable. Not flawless, not untouched, but grounded in a way that defies expectation. To mend you. This is where your presence becomes unsettling. You don't react the way people anticipate anymore. Manipulation falls flat. Guilt doesn't land. Emotional pressure doesn't provoke the response it used to. You've already confronted your own darkness in conversations that would dismantle other people entirely. You've endured silence so heavy it felt physical and emerged coherent. So when others attempt their games, their dramas, their manufactured emergencies, you don't engage automatically. You observe. You decide deliberately. You operate from a place untouched by fear or false hope. That clarity makes you unpredictable, uncontrollable, free. And now, something curious happens around you. People feel judged even when you say nothing. They feel exposed even when you're being kind. They grow uncomfortable without understanding why. It's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's because you exist as evidence. Evidence that their excuses are evidence that survival is possible beyond the limits they've accepted. Evidence that the human spirit can endure far more than they've allowed themselves to believe. Your existence challenges the stories they tell themselves to stay comfortable. And that truth, even unspoken, is powerful. Beings your continued presence exposes something in them they'd rather not examine. Simply by still existing, you contradict the stories they tell themselves about limits, about inevitability, about why they gave up. They may never say it out loud, but the resentment is there. Not loud, not dramatic, quiet and corrosive. They dislike that you're still standing. They dislike that you didn't become an example of failure. They dislike that you endured devastation powerful enough to erase futures, and yet remained functional. Because that realization forces an unbearable question. If you could survive that, then maybe their collapse wasn't fate. Maybe it was a choice. And that possibility is something many people will do anything to avoid confronting. Blands. So instead of facing that reflection, they distance themselves. They disappear without explanation. They keep conversations shallow. They maintain emotional distance not because you are demanding or difficult, but because your presence acts like a mirror. And when they see themselves reflected in it, what they could have endured, what they could have become, they look away. Avoidance is easier than accountability. Silence is easier than self-examination. The loneliness you carry isn't accidental. It's the cost of surviving something that was never meant to be survived, and doing it without guidance, without backup, without anyone capable of understanding the terrain you were navigating. You crossed that landscape alone, and even now, on the other side, the isolation remains. Because how do you genuinely connect with people who've only lived? On the surface, when you've explored depths they refuse to acknowledge? How do you engage in light conversation when you've already held dialogue with nothingness itself? You don't. You can't. And that isn't arrogance or detachment. It's incompatibility of experience You're not better than them. You're simply operating from a different layer of reality now. Your awareness was forged through initiation they haven't undergone. Your perception was shaped by costs they haven't paid. Most people lack the internal structure to meet you where you are. Not because they're flawed, but because they never had to become this. So you exist in a strange in-between space, surrounded by people, yet fundamentally alone. Able to understand nearly everyone, yet rarely understood in return. Planes. But here's the part that slowly rewired everything. You no longer need them. That realization doesn't arrive all at once. At first, it hurts. You endured everything, believing that survival would be witnessed. That someone would be waiting on the other side to recognize the scale of what you'd endured. You expected acknowledgement, understanding, validation. And when none of it came, it felt like another abandonment layered onto the others. Another quiet confirmation that this path was solitary. Then something shifted. You recognized that witnessing was never required. You were there. You felt every second of the pressure. You carried every moment of the weight. You survived experiences that should have ended you, and that knowing lives inside you permanently. No external recognition could add to it. No applause could deepen it. Your awareness is sufficient. Your private victory stands on its own. Your transformation doesn't require an audience. Resurrection doesn't need witnesses. It only needs breath. And if you're wondering what all of this shaped you into, the answer isn't comforting, but it is true. You became the anomaly. You became what fear doesn't anticipate. You became the outcome that wasn't accounted for in anyone's calculations. You're not a survivor in the familiar sense, someone who escapes and returns unchanged. You are the exception that invalidated the model entirely. The rule book didn't just fail to explain you, it disintegrated in your presence. Land. You didn't come back to reclaim what was lost. You came back as something that can't be categorized. Something that exists beyond warning labels and recovery narratives. You didn't outrun the darkness. You learned how to stand inside it without dissolving. And that makes you something far more rare than resilient. Most people who endure catastrophe limp away, carrying scars and stories, defined by what broke them. You didn't leave with either of those things. You emerged with a depth of endurance that defies normal explanation. What you developed goes beyond resilience. It borders on something that feels almost unnatural. You learned how to process darkness itself, to absorb it, convert it, and keep functioning in ways that shouldn't be possible within ordinary human limits. You're not traumatized in the way the world typically understands that word. Trauma fractures. What happened to you reshaped you. You were altered at the core. Bloodlines. You are the human equivalent of a substance exposed to forces meant to obliterate it. Pressures that should have destroyed you instead condensed you into something denser, stronger, and fundamentally different. And now you move through life, carrying abilities you don't fully recognize yet, potential you haven't deliberately tested. You're existing in a body and mind that were recalibrated by extremity, quietly holding capacities most people will never develop because they were never forced to. And what no one will openly admit is that they're paying attention. They're watching from a distance. Old friends scroll through your presence more often than they'll ever acknowledge. Trying to make sense of the shift, searching for a narrative that explains how you're still standing. And those who once positioned themselves against you, their fixation runs deepest. They track your movements. They ask questions through intermediaries. They build elaborate theories to justify your survival, because the truth unsettles them. You weren't supposed to endure. Your existence contradicts their understanding of cause and consequence. It dismantles their assumptions about how much a human being can take before collapsing. Blands. By their logic, you should be hardened into bitterness, visibly fractured, openly angry. But you aren't. You exist in a space they can't define, and that ambiguity gnaws at them. It keeps them awake. It challenges their internal hierarchies of strength and weakness. Because if you can withstand what you did and still function, then their limits feel suddenly self-imposed. Blend. Now we need to address the power you're carrying, whether you've named it or not. You survived experiences that erase entire lineages. That has consequences. It means there is very little left that can truly threaten you. Loss of status, relationships ending, isolation, humiliation, financial instability. None of it carries the same weight anymore. You've already lived through the scenario people fear most. You endured the mental and emotional apocalypse others collapsed just imagining. And you came out the other side coherent, functional, standing. So what leverage remains? What threat still holds authority over you? There isn't one. Blend. You're untouchable, not because nothing can happen to you, but because nothing can break you the way it once might have. You've already passed through the fire and discovered that it doesn't consume you. That's the presence people feel when you enter a space. It isn't aggression or arrogance. It's the absence of fear. You're no longer negotiating with life from a place of terror because you've already faced the worst and survived it. There's a truth that may sound cold, but it needs to be spoken. You don't owe anyone your story. You don't owe explanations for your evolution or access to the details of what reshaped you. Those who weren't there during the silence, the isolation, the repeated internal deaths, they didn't earn that knowledge. Some of them quietly hoped you wouldn't make it. Some expected your collapse. Some positioned themselves to benefit from your failure. So there is no obligation to satisfy their curiosity now. Let them wonder. Let them invent narratives that miss the truth entirely. Your survival belongs to you. Your transformation is... You don't owe vulnerability to people who would weaponize it, nor clarity to those who lack the capacity to understand it. You paid the cost. You endured the initiation. Now you get to move quietly, letting your presence communicate what words never could. Leaned. You didn't survive devastation on that scale just to live cautiously. You didn't absorb extinction-level pain to shrink afterward. You lived through something that was designed to end not just you, but everything connected to you. And you're still here, breathing, existing, appearing calm as if it were nothing. But you know the truth. It wasn't nothing. It was everything. And that's precisely why you're unstoppable.